friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Kate. Here in this channel, we do mom life together. We talk about living our lives with intention and purpose, and if that interests you, I would love to have you subscribe and join us here. So today I wanted to do a little book review for you. I just read In a Day, You Are the Girl for the Job by Jess Connolly, and I was super impressed by it. And it's actually a book that I will read again, and I can't say that about many books because I'm normally a one and done type of reader, but I would definitely read this book again. I did a lot of highlighting. I went back through it again to do this review for you, and I loved everything about it. I wanted to share it with you, and I think it's a really important book for any Christian woman to read, especially Christian mothers or, women that want to start a ministry or are maybe feeling like they're struggling with the role that God has called them to. And if you are here, it's highly likely that you're a foster or an adoptive parent, and I know that you maybe have had some feelings of inadequacy, like, can I do this? Am I enough for these kids? Can I actually handle all of this? Because I know I felt all those feelings as well. So this book is just an incredible reminder, an encouraging book without being too fluffy. And to be honest, I have read some Christian authors, and I just find their stuff to be a little bit too fluffy, and like they're just trying to appeal to the masses and be more relatable. And that's just not the type of book I want to read or what I'm going for. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong for it. It just doesn't attract me. And I'll read these books from these Christian authors, and sometimes there's flat out not truth being spoken in them. The message of self-sufficiency comes off across a lot, which is always a little bit of a red flag and a warning sign to me. And I actually just came off a interview with Blakey Shea from Confessions of a Crappy Christian podcast, and we talk a little bit more about this. So if you want to know where I'm going with that, you can check out that podcast episode. I'll have it linked down below when it's ready. Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. I was a bit cautious when I started to read because I think the Christian author space or Christian social media space has a lot of dilution, and it's just not what I'm here for. So honestly, I wasn't too sure, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I highly recommend this book, and I would definitely read it again. So over and over, she reminds us that our capacity is because of Jesus. It has nothing to do with our own self-sufficiency, what we are comfortable with. It is because of Jesus. We're put here with our own individual circumstances, with each of us having a different path laid out before us, and being intentional about our journeys, being obedient to God is truly the key to a life of fulfillment. She talks about we all have a mission to live out, and we need to stop doubting ourselves because of who our Lord and Savior is and what our Lord and Savior has done and what He can do and His capacity. I love, to me, what the overwhelming theme of the book, other than you are the girl for the job, and as I get into this a little bit more, you'll understand what that means, but the other theme that I really saw in this book was God is the hero, we are His rescue plan. So it's not about being self-sufficient and doing things and, for your glory, or to do things or to have people look at you and, think of you highly, but to glorify God in your individual path, in your individual journey. For me, I know I was meant to be a foster parent. So much of my earlier life led me to this point. And when my husband and I finally stepped into the role of foster parenting, so many other God-appointed things started to happen. And, before then, I felt like I was searching for more meaning, more purpose to my life. And up until that point, I felt like I had been enjoying my life. And of course, I had endured my fair share of trials, but, I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of purpose. Yes, I found fulfillment in being a mother to my biological children and, living life as a Christian, but I was searching for more. There was always something more service that I needed to do, more growth that needed to happen. Not only did my walk with Jesus grow so much stronger, but I started to act different. I was different because I felt like I was stepping into my calling. And I started, I had my blog before, but I was blogging more about beauty and stuff that I just don't care to be blogging about anymore. And God just spoke to me and said, if you're going to be spending time on a social platform, and let's be honest, this is the way of the world. This is the world that we live in now. So you either just don't be a part of it at all and get left behind, or you become a part of it and you use it to glorify God. So God just spoke to me and said, if you're going to be blogging and spending time creating content and connecting with people, you need to be doing it about something that matters. And honestly, for a long time, I struggled. Like, I didn't want to blog or talk about being a foster parent or adopting. I just wanted to share information to be helpful. I wanted my blog to help to provide an income for my family, free up my husband from his day job so that one day we can pursue like long-term ministry goals that we've had. And I didn't want to talk about it, and I resisted it, and I felt icky about it, and I didn't want to do it. And then God just spoke to me very clearly one day and was just like, if you're going to be spending the time, this is what you're going to be spending it doing. And this is the impact. This is your purpose. This is why I put you here on this earth, and you need to share it. And thankfully, I have seen so much fruit. Like, I get messages all the time from people saying that they were encouraged, or they felt supported, or even better, like they became a foster parent because they were thinking about it and God was leading them to it, but they saw one of my videos or they read one of my blog posts. And those comments and emails that I get, they just fill me like nothing else, because it's just an affirmation to me, like, okay, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I thought I would be a hairdresser and own my own salon. I've always wanted to be my own boss. Like, I've always had an urge for entrepreneurship within me. And I've done, MLM businesses, I've sold different things over the years, but I thought, I'd own a salon and spa one day. And then one day that world just became very superficial to me. And I'm not saying anything against people that are still in it and that do it. I think there's definitely a value to it, and the confidence that you can give a woman by improving their looks, or just, making them feel good about themselves with a good haircut or color or whatever, and like the well-being side of the spa. Like, I think those are important elements. But for me, it was like, what shows can I work backstage at? And, how can I elevate myself? Whose hair can I be doing that, like, oh, I'm so good because I do this person's hair, that kind of thing. Like, there was just a lot of like worldly goals within that, and God just totally changed my passion and heart for that. Like, I honestly thought I would be in that industry forever, and now I'm like, even if you watch some of my old videos, I was just kind of coming out of that, and like my hair was bright red, like I always wanted to make a statement, and now I'm just becoming such like a plain Jane person. But I just was putting my value in worldly things, and God just really changed that about me. And I love this book because it just really reminded me about the journey that I've been on. And yeah, like, I'm doing things now, and I have things coming up in the future that I never felt equipped to do, or never felt like I could, that I could ever do. Sorry, it is like 11 at night, and I am filming this with a baby who's got a little bit of an upset tummy, so I have to keep stopping. So if that seems jumpy, that's why. But back to where I was. The salon. And stepping into my purpose as a foster parent. I think that everything serves a purpose, and God puts us in different circumstances at different times for different reasons. But, when I kind of had made the shift out of who I was as hairdresser Kate, who I am now as stay-at-home mom, foster parent, content creation online Kate, I guess I just struggled with why I felt like I wasted so many years, and I wish I had been doing something more purposeful. And God just kind of got a hold of me and was like, but that was purposeful. And I just made a list of all the things that it did for me, and it gave me confidence. I taught for a color line, so it gave me the ability to public speak. And, stand up in that role in front of people. It gave me the ability to be compassionate and empathetic, because if anybody is watching as a hairdresser or has a close relationship with their hairdresser, like I call us therapists sometimes, because I was told things by clients that they wouldn't tell anybody else in their life. I knew about, I'm not going to get into the hairdresser gossip, but experienced a lot of people, and it just made me very empathetic and compassionate, which served me well in the role that I am now. So, I kind of was like, those weren't wasted times. Like, God didn't make a mistake then, and even though my motives weren't the most godly based when I was in that world, God used all of that. God uses every situation that he puts us in for his good. Like, ultimately everything comes together for his good for those that love him. So this book just kind of reminded me of that and just encouraged me. And I think so often we can fall into routines and the mundaneness, of riding out everyday life and ignoring the dreams and the small whispers that God puts into our heart. And, we just get plain old comfortable in where we are, ignoring what we could be. And I think a lot of that comes from feeling like we're not enough or feeling like we're inadequate. But if God calls you to it, He will equip you for it. And one thing she said in the very opening of the book, and she gets it from somewhere else, it's not her own quote, but she said it had a profound impact on her, and it did for me as I read it. It was, "You will repeat what you do not repair." And it just, as humans, we're creatures of habits. Our brains are designed to keep us safe. Dating back to the ancient times, we were literally like fighting for our lives from wild animals. Our brains are designed to keep us safe, keep us alive. But today in North America, we have all the comforts we could ever dream of. So our fears manifest in different ways. And it's easy to be comfortable and stay comfortable. And I'm going to save it for the end, but there's a saying about being comfortable that I say all the time to anyone I get the chance to talk to. It's a mantra that I try to live by as well. And often I think fears kind of come across as like, what will others think of me if I step into this role, or if I break on, if I do something, and if you answer the calling on your heart. If you're a believer in Jesus and you have an intimate, close relationship with God, He speaks to us. He has this small, still voice, and He tells us and guides us and directs us and comforts us. So often we're in disobedience to that because we're scared of what other people think, or we're scared about security or comfort. There's just so much more to life than comfort. I try to live my life that way, and I know I fail often, and it's easy to revert back to comfort because that's what the message that our world tells us. Part of that is having wisdom. Like if you're feeling something crazy, it doesn't mean just jump into it and drop everything in the path that you're originally on, but maybe start working towards different things and do 2 things at once and see if God continues to open doors. There's definitely an element of wisdom when you're answering a calling, not just to jump 2 feet into things. And that's hard for me to say because I'm an Enneagram 7 and I have like a million dreams and I feel like I never have enough time to accomplish all of them. And maybe you're like me, or maybe you're more calculated and you're not a risk taker, but we get one life, right? So here's one thing Jess says. I want to read this. "I find most of us are pre-wired with fear, anticipate struggle, and carry a massive amount of doubt about our capacity. And honestly, we're not crazy. Life is hard. Loving others is messy. Very few people are wildly successful, and no one is immune from getting beat up when they are on mission. We aren't crazy for having fears. We're realistic." The old adage, "She believed she could, so she did." I find that for me, just about nothing is further from the truth. I know my own natural capacity. It is very, very low. If left to my own devices, I'd watch Netflix and eat dairy-free yogurt all day long. I'd probably never enter into hard conversations or get out of my comfort zone. If I wanted to do things that made me feel capable, things that celebrated my strengths, I'd have a life consisting of taking naps and making coffee. I'm good at those things. If I worked only based on what I can do well in my own strength, I'd never have children, get married, do ministry, drive a car, write books, go on vacation, live on missions, serve the homeless, lead a church, start businesses, have friends, or encourage anyone. I would never live. I would never love. I would never taste abundance. And I think just reading that is where I was like, okay, this book is going to be good because like I said earlier, there's a message of self-sufficiency. And if we lean onto our own strengths, we're never going to achieve what God has called us to. We need to be leaning into Him, leaning into His strength, asking Him to equip us, praying, staying in close relationship with Him. And then He will equip us. And then we will see dreams that He put in our hearts come to fruition. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but it's because of God. Like, we can't just live our lives comfortably. We have to take risks and answer the calling that God puts on our hearts. He also says this: "We are the girls for the job because of the God of all capacity who not only calls us but equips us and dwells within us, enabling us to carry out His plans. We are able to live, to love, to move, to repair, to receive, to heal, to hope because of Him. We are the girls for the job, for this season, for this life, for the joy and blessing of those around us at this exact appointed time, because God has placed us here. He's called us to be His ambassadors, and He doesn't make mistakes. This book won't puff you up and tell you that you have all you need, but it will point you to the one who does. You're placed where you're at with what you've got on purpose. Rest on His strength and shine right where He has placed you." I love how she reminds us that we need to take ourselves out of the race. I think especially now in this day and age of social media, our ego and our pride takes over and we are not walking humbly in the Spirit. We can be doing things of purpose and helping others, but our pride can take over in that. I get comments all the time about how I'm such a good person or I'm a saint because I'm a foster parent. And honestly, it makes me uncomfortable because I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm doing this because God has called me to it. And speaking of that, I have a baby with a fussy belly, so hold that thought. I will be back. If I'm looking tireder and tireder, I am. Sorry if you hear lullabies in the background and my dog. I just laid down for 45 minutes with him. And you know what? It's funny that I'm filming this video and I'm talking about feeling adequate, because honestly, I'm just like, please, I've been trying to get you to sleep since 8 o'clock. Like, I've already fed him 2 bottles. His tummy just seems to be a little bit upset tonight. And he's just like sleeping and then waking up and not settling. So I don't know how much longer I have, but I want to finish this video well. I started it. It's a perfect example, because right now I'm like, it would be so much easier if I wasn't a foster parent and I wasn't dealing with a fussy baby who's got things. This is when like the devil can try and steal your joy and your purpose. And whenever God has called you to something and it aligns with the Bible, then you know it's what he's called you to. It's his voice. And when you're feeling discouraged and defeated, like, that's all Satan. And I'm just like, please, why don't you sleep? Like, I really want to get this video filmed. It's after midnight now. But I really just laid down with him, and then he like snuggled in and he like relaxed. And I was like, okay, this is what he needs. He just needs me right now. So I just laid down with him, and it just kind of like filled me back up, you know? Anyways, let's finish. I get comments all the time about how I'm such a good person or I'm a saint because I'm a foster parent. And honestly, it makes me uncomfortable, because I just feel like I'm leaning into a role that God has called me to, leaning into a purpose that God has called me to. I asked him many times, and I continue to ask him, oh, there he is again. Please stay asleep. To break my heart for what breaks his, and that is orphaned and vulnerable children. Like, it just bothers me when I hear stories and I see things, and I'm just like, it breaks my heart, and I feel so compelled to help. And I know that that's a God thing. Not every Christian is going to have the same burden and same calling. And I think early on in this fostering journey, I would speak out and say, like, as Christians, we're called to do this. And we are. It does say that in the Bible. And I believe we all are called to help in different ways. But that doesn't necessarily mean everyone is meant to be a foster or adoptive parent. And for me, it's incredibly important. And it's important that I steward that responsibility well. And so many times in the past 4.5 years and 10 kids, like, I feel like I failed them, or I haven't done enough for them, or, I put these high expectations on myself of who I am to be for them. And I'm tired, and it's hard, and I get worn down. But at the end of the day, that is what my heart breaks for, in service and helping others is what God calls us to. And for me, this doesn't only just mean fostering and adopting. Like, I feel called to encourage and to support others, because I know how isolating it can be. I know the road is long and narrow, and not many people are there with you side by side doing it. And I feel called to encourage us to do, because I feel like it's such an important thing. And foster and adoptive parents need to be supported. And I also want to show others it's not this unattainable thing. Like, the number one thing I get is always, I couldn't do what you do. And it's like, so many people could do what I do. And I just want to show them, like, we're not some crazy, weird, super family. Like, we have flaws. We're broken people just like everybody else. But I just asked God to, like, break my heart for what breaks hers. And this is what he's placed on my heart. And I can't not help. I think there's seasons for everything. Just like there was a season for me to be a hairdresser. This is my season to be a foster parent. And I don't know if I'll be a foster parent forever. I will be an adoptive parent forever, of course. Right now, this is where I'm meant to be. And I encourage you to lean into that purpose. And if you feel God has been calling you to it, like, start taking steps. If you're not meant to do it, I firmly believe he will close doors. He'll slam doors shut. I just believe there are more people on this earth that are meant to step into this vital kingdom role. Like, there wouldn't be the orphan crisis that there is if the people that should be doing it were doing it. So here's another thing Jess says. We cannot seek God's glory and our own at the same time. If any part of our hearts is divided, seeking to win rather than seeking to wonder at his goodness, let's just quit right now. We can't seek to be the girl for the job and the girl who wins at the same time. Because he calls us, we do have a race to run, but it's not our race. It's not a race in which we win the prize and claim the glory for ourselves. It's his race, aimed at bringing as many people under its light and life of his love as possible. She talks about this ideal self exercise that she does on this retreat, and She also talks about how our ideal self actually has nothing on us because our experiences, our hurts, our past have all shaped who we are to be today. And God uses all of those painful situations to minister to other people and to connect with other people and to be a light to other people. For me, my miscarriage, losing our first baby, was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And then finding out we were almost losing our to be adopted daughter last year, like that was another super hard thing. But I've been able to connect with people and love on people and just have connections because of those things. This ideal self exercise she talks about, it does allow us to see God's potential for ourselves. Like when we remove all the things and all the bad habits that we wish we weren't, and put our ideal self, what would the perfect day look like? Like, I think that's God showing us our potential and stepping into that. And again, it's not about self-sufficiency. There's definitely a role of action that you need to take. And God gives us free will because He loves us, and we have responsibilities and expectations, but He also covers us in grace. And what if you stepped into your role? Like, what if you actually stepped into your purpose and didn't just live for comfort? Here's what Jess says about that. I think in a lot of ways, when we imagine our ideal selves, we're just dreaming about who we could be. We are exploring part of who God made us to be. We're opening up the boundaries that used to hold us back and seeing our potential with His eyes. You're placed right where you're at in this season around these people with all the tools you need to love them and continually point them to Jesus. You are the girl for the job. Your ideal self has got nothing on you. I refuse to miss out on what God is doing and what He might be saying and how He may be miraculously intervening. I refuse to miss out because I'm focused on myself, my insecurities, or my perception of my own capacity. I just love this book. Another part, she's talking about oppression. And, I think the world often blames God for all these terrible things that happen, when in fact it's actually our own human selves that have the responsibility. Remember, God gave us free will because He loves us. How much as humans have we screwed up over the years? So here's one thing she says about oppression. Where is God in the midst of oppression? I believe He's often working miracles on behalf of His people. Miracles we couldn't dream of or see, and He is also stirring, calling, and equipping His people to meet the needs and fight for justice on behalf of their fellow humans. Our Father was not and is not inactive in times of injustice, but rather He is carefully and intentionally using His favorite tool to activate justice, His people. And this note on sexism, girl, I was clapping as I read this. I get a little riled up with North American feminists when women have it so great here. Sure, maybe there's still pay gaps and there's different things, but I live a blessed life as a woman in North America, and women around the world cannot say the same thing. When I hear people getting super riled up about feminist issues here in North America, it's so much worse for so many other women around the world. And I just wish that they would be fighting for those causes rather than, the $5,000 pay gap or whatever it may be. There is an element of women focusing on their families and leaving the workplace to do that and the time to do that. And anyways, this is not a story about that, but God never discounts females. I'm doing some more study on this right now. I was reading a post from Felicia Mason. I can't remember how to say her name. Felicia Mason Hauer, I think, is her name. But I've only discovered her recently, but she seems like a very godly woman and really knows her stuff. And she recommended some books, and I'm super excited to dive into it. But God never discounts women. And here's the story that Jess shares in the book. Patriarchy and sexism and the enemy of our souls may discount women, but God never did and never does. In fact, He invited many women to rise to the occasion and be His co-workers in the fight against injustice in the story of Moses as a baby. Pharaoh ordered that all the baby boys be killed, but he made the fatal error of discounting the power of God amongst women who would rise up and fight against him. The midwives fought by disobeying His law. Moses' mother fought by hiding her son. Moses' sister fought by strategizing his rescue, and God even used Pharaoh's daughter's gift of mercy to save the man who would come to represent God's power over Egypt. Big mistake, Pharaoh. Big mistake, Satan. Culture can discount women, but our God never will. And I just love that because I think, often in legalistic churches, you can see acts of how women maybe aren't valued as equals or whatever, but church and the people are is what has it wrong. God never discounts women, and God is for women. And that is written all over the Bible if you really dig in and do your research. So I just love how she shared this story because I'd never really thought about it before. And then just a note she says about the rescue plan. If we are not careful, we can look at world leaders and their work and misplace them as the target of our worship and reverence. But it has always been Him, always God, beckoning and calling and equipping normal people, even those of us who are reluctant to practice simple obedience so that rescue plan can have human hands on it. Make no mistake that He wants to use you to fight the darkness that lives both within and outside of your comfortable boundaries. Make no mistake that we're still in the midst of rescue, that He is still in the process of setting things right. Let's not make the mistake of missing it because our eyes are focused on ourselves, or because they're overwhelmed by the size of the fight, or because we're waiting for a hero to do the work for us. And this just really resonated again with me for fostering. Like, I think so often we look at the size of the problem and it just becomes overwhelming, but it's just like, what can I do? What can you do to help these kids, to help the next generation? These kids are the vulnerable ones. What can we do to help? And, not focusing on the overall problem. Like, I look at the system and all the problems within the system, and sometimes it just makes me angry and sad all at the same time. But what can I do in this moment to help? So let's stop doubting ourselves and our God-given dreams and step out in faith. Have faith over fear. I love what she says here. In the name of Jesus, we've got to quit telling God He's got the wrong girl, because if we don't acknowledge that He knows better by this point in the game, we're being crazy, and eventually He may listen to us and use someone else, and then we'll be the ones missing out. God is God, but we are the gals He's ordained to bring light and life to the corner of the world where He has intentionally placed us for a mission. I'm not going to share too much more because I just want you to go and read the book and, copyright issues and all of that. It is a fabulous book. I really enjoyed it. If you have this dream or something that you feel like you're being called to, or something that you want to step into, and you're maybe being faced with boundaries, or, it just seems unattainable, start taking little steps toward it. If you feel God stirring up something in your soul, but you don't know how to start, just start taking little steps. If you want to become a foster parent, make that first call to the agency. Go to an information night. Talk to another foster parent. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you. I didn't know where to start when I was stepping out in service as a foster parent. I just knew that that was my next step. That is what I was meant to be doing. And I have questioned it along the way and wondered if this was the right thing, and wondered if I'm the right person to do this job, because it's hard. And like I said earlier, sometimes I feel inadequate, but then blessings come, and the feelings of peace I have knowing that I am right where God called me to be, they take over, and I know that I'm living where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And if you're searching, you want to feel fulfillment, you want to feel abundance, then you need to step out in service to others. And if you don't know where to start with who your heart breaks for. We all have, or should have, people groups that our hearts break for, whether that's the homeless, whether that's the marginalized, whether that's people involved in human trafficking, whether that's poverty in third world countries, whether that's fostering and adoption, whether that's animals. There's all areas of injustice that we need to be helping in. We need to help a fellow human. If we live our lives only trying to serve ourselves, it leads to a life of such shallowness and unfulfillment. So this is what Jess says. Brokenness for others is the most beautiful starting line we can ever have for ministry. The giver has given you an intentional set of strengths, and to shirk them, to hide them, to let them atrophy is the opposite of worship. It is honoring to our Father when you acknowledge what He's given you for the good of others and for His glory. This doesn't mean things are going to be perfect along the way. I have had my heart broken. I've literally been scared for my life. I've been annoyed. I've had my integrity questioned. I've questioned myself. I've been isolated. I've lost friends in this journey. But all of that has grown me into who I am today, and for that I am truly thankful. So just a couple more things that she says that I just think are really impactful. What if loss and failure are supposed to be the cornerstone of our testimony? God is the hero, you are the rescue plan, and my most favorite thing she says in all the book, do you want to get to the end of your life and say, at least I was comfortable? I don't think so. I don't think any of us want to get to the end of our life and think, I had lived a comfortable life. I never did anything outside of my comfort zone. I watched Netflix and ate whatever I want and had fun. Sure, those are all nice, good things, but living a life of purpose and impact is so much better than any of that ever could be. So I hope this book review was maybe helpful to you. You learned something. It makes you want to go read it. I highly recommend any Christian mother, any foster parent, anyone considering foster or adoption, anyone considering a call into ministry, a big, you're searching for purpose. If you fall into any of those categories, go and get the book, read the book. Thank you so much for being here today. Sorry, the energy level probably dropped near the end. It's like 12:30 in the morning now. I am going to go to bed. But if you know somebody that might find this helpful, I'd love if you shared this video, like it. That's a compliment to my channel and helps other like-minded mamas find me. And subscribe if you're new. I would love to have you join the community. I will see you on the next video. Bye.